is the only natural resources that not only the deficit of have gonna create problem, but also the surplus of water can also create severe issues with human population. A good example of that in the context of Iran is the 2019 flooding event that caused lots of causality and socio-economic damages throughout the country in Iran. The source of water crisis in Iran is coming from multiple sources. First of all, Iran is a vast country with a huge variability in its climate and water availability in time and space. We have places in Iran with less than 100 millimeters of rainfall per year, whereas we have some other places in Iran with more than 1,000 millimeter rainfall. These severe differences in the variability of water over the landscape can actually create heterogeneity in water availability as well as limitation to socioeconomic activities. In addition, water availability in Iran has a huge variability within time. We have years of low water availability followed by years of high water availability. And this variability in water over the landscape can actually create some instability in socioeconomic activities around the water. The other source of water crisis in Iran is the high population, particularly the growth of the population after the World War II in Iran. What we are seeing now is around 2.5 times increase in population in the last 40 years. That caused not only the more demand to the water, but also create more exposure to water crisis. So now if one water crisis happens, then because of having more population, more people are going to be exposed to that crisis, and then that's going to create huge vulnerabilities at the national level. The other issue that we have is that within the last 40 years, we have developed a lot of socioeconomic activities around the water. And in fact, lots of these socioeconomic activities are really thirsty to the use of water, and they require a high water demand. So that also causes the increase of water use per capita, which also can be another pressure to the water availability, particularly in terms of the water shortage. The other issue that is important is that because of developing in the country, we have a lot of activities around land and water management. And sometimes these activities has been unsustainable and causes severe changes in our natural processes that govern water availability on the surface or subsurface. Because of that also, because of some of the mismanagement that happened, we are actually losing some of our water resources. A good example of that is the Urmia Lake, as well as the severe decline in the groundwater availability in Iran. Last but not the least, climate change is also another stressor to the water availability in Iran. However, we are expecting to see this stress more in the future rather than now, although we can say that in some part of the Iran, climate change impacts are already evident, particularly in the mountainous region that we are receiving much less snowpack within the recent year, as well as the shrinking and declining glaciers. We need to understand that water in Iran is in fact used not only for water and basically the activities that are surrounded only around the water. In fact, water in Iran is a driver of many socioeconomic activities, is a source of economical growth in Iran, and in fact, it should be treated as a commodity. So now that the impact of water shortage, if we want to look at that, we need to look at what is the distribution of the water used in Iran. In fact, 90% of the water in Iran is used for agriculture, which is centered in the rural areas, which in fact has a very vulnerable economy because of the socio-economic situation of Iran and the way that the economical and social landscape works in the country. So now by having a water shortage, obviously the first place that is going to be hit is going to be the rural areas, and in particular the agricultural activities centered in the rural areas. that's going to cause huge issues which related to the slowdown of the socio-economic activities around agriculture, mass immigration, economical unrest in some part of the Iran, which is have high population of the rural population. It's going to create mass immigration toward the cities. Mass immigration toward the cities naturally going to increase the water use in the cities, as well as declining the water quality in the cities, obviously because of the increase of the population. And when you put all of it together, it's going to be additional stress to the already stressed water resources in Iran. And then if you want to look at it from a wider aspect, we need to understand that water in Iran have a very, very close relationship with food production, obviously, as well as the energy production. So any shortage of water in Iran gonna impact, obviously, because of the declining of the water use in agriculture, gonna affect the agriculture and food production, but also gonna affect our energy production. And that's gonna create some issues, particularly in the electrical use that we are to some extent reliant to the hydroelectricity. So all of this is going to create socio-political unrest. It might even cause geopolitical tension with the neighboring countries due to the competition over the water, and it's not going to be the situation that any of us want. I think that the most important activity and most strategic look in Iran should be looking at how they can smartly decline the water demand in Iran. And to be honest with you, I think that is actually the place that we have some opportunities, because the efficiency of the agriculture and irrigation system in Iran is extremely low. Now we are talking in Iran in terms of the efficiency of the irrigation between 30% to 35%, and to some recent places to some 50%. However, we need to understand that this water efficiency can be much more. And we can actually get it to, some countries are already having up to 80%. So this means that we are gonna reduce the amount of our water use on the national scale up to maybe half of that. And if we are reducing the half of the water demand, if we are improving the efficiency of the irrigation, we do not need to necessarily decrease our food production. That is the very great point here. And just to improve the efficiency, so you use less water. So if we are basically reducing the amount of water use in our country, basically less to maybe half of it now, we are basically gonna solve many of the water crises that we have now. So I would say that the first focus should be on improving the irrigation system in Iran. This is a big project. Maybe it requires a 1 decade or maybe a couple of decades of the national action on that, and it requires to have some courageous decision. However, I think this is the way to go, and if you want to have a country with sustainable development and a country that has a good water security in the era of climate change, I think this is the way to go. The second thing is that we need to centralize our water management and also climate studies in the country. Now we have a lot of organizations that are basically working on the water resource management in the countries. This cannot go like this, because this is going to create conflicts and unnecessary competition between the advisory bodies. The water, I think a national water and climate institute in Iran is a necessity for facing the water security issues in the future. And that really requires that all the activities that now we are having around the water is going to one institute, one standalone institute that basically have the first and the last comment on the managing the water resources in the country. The third thing is that we need to stop developing, socio-economic activities in the floodplains. The example of the 2019 flooding in Iran was very evident. While on the last year, 2018, we were talking about the water shortage crisis, that water shortage crisis immediately substitute by a water surplus crisis. And that was the cases that caused a lot of socio-economic damages and, in fact, loss of life. So we need to basically have a stop developing our socio-economic activities in the floodplain zone, because even if we are having a period of water shortage and the floodplains are not actively involved with the socio-economic activities, that reality might substitute with the new reality, and that, because of the huge development in the floodplain as well as the population growth, can actually cause huge exposure to the population and obviously vulnerability. The other important issue is that the government of Iran should start immediately to work on involving citizens into water management. You know, in developed countries, we have this program of stewardship that every single water bodies that share by population and include socio-economic activities, even recreational activities, have a body of stewardship from the locals that they try to monitor, they try to provide advisory to the use of the water to the governing and managing bodies. And basically, these are these stewardship and this non-governmental organization is an important parts of the water negotiation and water management in the developed countries. I think the same program needs to develop in Iran. We need to make the citizen the stewards of the water, and if we involve citizens into that and basically make them aware about the importance of their decision on the water management in the whole country, I think we can expect a lot of support from the community as well as a lot of activities by the citizen toward protecting our precious water bodies in Iran. The other thing that I guess is hugely important, and I guess this requires a strategic attention, is to basically leading some discussion with the neighboring countries around the management of international water bodies. We have important rivers that are coming from different countries, neighboring countries into Iran, and we have our important waters that are going from our countries to the other countries. And I think we require to have a regional negotiation around the issue of water with the virtue of integrity, with the virtue of collaboration between the countries. And hopefully then we're going to be stronger together in order to face the climate change crisis that is going to be hard in the Middle East in the years to come.